Hey everyone, welcome back. And I have another awesome speaker. I spoke with this lady. She was the number one speaker during the podcast that I've launched recently for coaching businesses leading up to this summit. And that session was absolutely fire. I didn't expect it to be this dense, but Ariana, you've done an awesome job. So I'm super excited to welcome you back for this summit. This is Ariana Rodriguez, and we're going to talk about building an ecosystem of tech to actually carry your coaching business.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I'm so excited to be here with everybody. And I'm excited to dive deep into how I think about building an operational foundation for your business as you continue to grow, right? You all have already done an amazing job growing your coaching businesses. We're just going to refine, right? That's all we're talking about today. And also, I really truly love having interactive conversations with people. So please use the chat, ask questions, put things in there. I love seeing it. And if you all need clarifying questions or have clarifying questions, just let me know. I also, just a disclaimer, talk really fast. So if I'm talking too fast or breezing over something, also let me know. Happy to revisit any points that we talk about. All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about me, about the company, the agency that I've built. We'll define what a tech ecosystem really is, how to assess your current tech ecosystem or your tech stack as it stands, and then work on building connections so that you can have that ideal state of an ecosystem moving forward. So just a little bit about my agency. So we are an operational consultancy, really providing C-suite level service to scaling agencies and coaching businesses so that they have that like grounded foundational support that you need to have a thriving company, right? So that you can actually have a little bit of headspace and have some time back to yourselves. So the first thing that I wanted to start off with is this quote. And I love this quote, right? It's a little dense. It says that the first rule of any technology used in business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. And all that Bill Gates is saying here is that your tech is less important than the processes you're leveraging and you're using to back up that tech. You can have the most expensive, biggest, amazing tech on the planet, but if your processes are messy, not streamlined, created in silos, then you're going to continue to have messy streamlined, right? The tech will not fix that basic process operational issue to begin with. So the question here is, do you have an ecosystem of tech or just a laundry list, right? So you all are the elite of the elite in the coaching business, and you probably all have really impressive tech, right? Like the amount of tech you use to keep your business functioning is probably long, but an ecosystem is a complex network or interconnected system, right? So is your tech, when we think about tech or an ecosystem in nature, we're thinking about all the flora and fauna kind of working together to create this really harmonious world. And how many of you can say that your internal operations are harmonious? Like, I'm really curious in the chat how many of you can actually say that. So this includes, I saw a few laughing reactions over there. So this, when I'm thinking about like internal operations, I'm not just including like finance, back end operations, marketing, but also like when you think about the culture and values of your company, right? The well being and development of your employees or contractors, and then the impact that you are having, your services are having, excuse me, on your clients and community. When looking at your business systems, you should always ensure that whatever tech you're integrating will be supporting the overall mission of your business, right? So, this is lofty goals when you're talking about like a tech app that you're just finding on the internet, right? On the world of Google. So, in the chat, I want you to enter one if you feel like you have just a laundry list of tech. That if you think about tech and you don't even know how many tech stack or how many pieces of tool you're currently using in your business. Or enter two if you feel like your business is actually running harmoniously. I see a bunch of laughs, a bunch of laughing emojis. All right. So how do we actually analyze your business to see if your tech and system are holistically created, right? So when you have a laundry list, right, you have this sense of you don't know what's connected to what. You have standalone tech that does maybe one very specific thing that everyone forgets about every time you're relaunching something. And then you still need to look up whether it's your passwords or to-do list or other random things in random places like sticky notes. And then every launch, you feel like you're reinventing the wheel, right? Or more, right? The tech that you're currently using, while it's of a help, it's not actually making your life easier. And you're regularly thinking that it would just be easier to pay an additional person to do this work. When you're thinking ecosystem or you have an ecosystem, you have more free time and more white space, right? What that means is that when tech and your operations are set up to flow together and you're in the daily details and the nitty-gritty of your business so much less, right? You have a clear sense of the tech that you're using in your business and why you're using it, right? Everything is working in sync together. The technology builds upon itself and is not just like this standalone piece, right? It's all interconnected and working with each other. And it's not just the tech that's working together, it's your tech and your team are working cohesively together, right? To create seamless experiences for your people. And the end all be all is that your team actually feels supported and empowered because their roles are clearly defined, right? So think about what that would feel like to have this ecosystem, right? To have your tech, to have your team working cohesively together to actually deliver your services to your clients. And then what would you do with all the free time that you would have back in your business when you're not answering those 1,000 operational questions from your team in Slack? Or if you have a DOO or an OBM that does that, what would they be able to accomplish if they were not fielding those thousands of questions for you, right? So how do you do this, right? How do we start doing this, refining this without burning down what we already worked so hard to build? Process mapping. It is a simple solution, even though it can be a little overwhelming. So we're going to walk through what process mapping is and how I like to define it, right? So what most people think about when they're thinking about processes are they think about their client journey, right? And all of you probably know what your client journey is. You know that your clients, when they purchase X products, are going through this funnel. They get to the next product, they go through this next funnel, et cetera, right? You have a good grasp of what your client journey is. And most of you also have a DOO or an OBM that have created SOPs for your team to follow for individual processes. But these are just portions of what I'm talking about, right? They're not an overall view or blueprint of how your business is being run, right? When I'm talking about process mapping, I don't mean a single process, right? I don't mean just the client journey. I mean creating a two-dimensional visual of your entire business and what that can then do and how that can then educate how you're going to run moving forward, right? So here is an example of a process map that I did for a client. And we're going to kind of walk through a couple of the pieces here, right? So when you're thinking about this, either you, your DOO, whoever you have in the operational role of your company, right? Recording individual steps of each process. And while that sounds daunting, it's super important because it's actually telling you how people are working in your business, how clients are making decisions, how anything is happening in how your business is run, right? And when you're going through this process, you really want to treat this like a 5-year-old asking, and then, and then what? And then what? And then what? Right? Like it really has to be granular, right? Then you have your decision points. And once you know the reason that this is so important, right? Like it's highlighting the decisions that both clients and team members need to make throughout any process means that you are then outlining what an ideal state would be for either your clients or your team members, right? So what does that look like? So when you know the decisions your clients or your team need to make in each process, you can outline your ideal response. What happens if a client says yes or decides to go the VIP option versus a general admission option, right? What happens when a team member has XYZ question on this process, right? Or they reach this section where like, okay, do I do this or that? What is it? What is a preferred method of operating, of following through? And having that outlined means that you then have less decision making in the law, right? You're empowering now the person responsible for that to make the decision themselves, and to you are now able to trust them that they can continue forward. And then this is the case with either tech or people, right? You can have that if not this, then that kind of logic, even in tech. And I know that these decisions sound silly, right? But they're super important in the long run because they help create replicable processes, right? And what that means is that you're continuing to scale without adding any additional work on your, right? Highlighting the tech that's involved, right? Being able to highlight the tech that's involved in each step really truly allows you to then audit your tech. It lets you see what you're using and how you're using it, and whether or not it's worth you changing your systems, changing your tech apps, right? If you're using an application only 10% at 10% of its capacity, then maybe it's worth using a different system at 50 or 75% capacity instead, right? Having those conversations or highlighting what tech you're using for what steps allows you to have those conversations with your DOO, your OBM much more efficiently so that you can make more educated decisions around the tech that you're then integrating into your company. And then automation, right? I like to color code my process map. I want to see at a blink of an eye, right, when I'm glancing at this, how much is automated versus manual in the processes. And after doing probably hundreds of these, I can promise you that everyone is always insanely surprised of how much manual work they're doing on a given basis, or how much is ambiguous and people does not have a clear owner, right? So this not only allows you to see like what the processes are, but allows you to see who should be doing what in your business, right? So once you have all of this laid out, right? It's a little overwhelming, and I get that, right? Like this is a lot to do for especially a larger business. But once you have it laid out, it's so easy. And I promise you, it really is easy to highlight inefficiencies, to highlight bottlenecks, to highlight places where decisions are, like I said, ambiguous, where roles and responsibilities are ambiguous, and where things could just be clearer, smoother, more reduced, right? And when I'm doing these, I always suggest that these sessions be really collaborative so that we can get into detail about not only get into detail about these processes, but so that your team feel one, included, and so that they can express what their pain points are, right? So now your team is saying, this is actually what I do every day. And what you thought was a 3-step process is now being brought to your attention as a 25-step process, right? That takes them 3 hours every week when you thought it was a 15-minute situation. So now you can easily say, okay, let's figure out how we can automate this and take this off of your plate so you can focus on something else instead of continuing with the status quo, right? All right, so bring it all together. So when you have your processes and your inefficiencies identified, now it's time to fix the issues, right? So how can you and your team predefine decisions? When you're building this out and you see that there's a question, right? A question comes up or a decision needs to be made for you to continue on with that process, whether it's a decision made by your team, whether it's a decision made by the clients, like you can predefine what what those answers are, right? Like if the client says this, I want them to go down this path. If my team member needs to do this, I want them to go down this path. This is what these steps look like, right? You can then easily highlight what tasks can be automated, right? What tasks are taking your team 3 hours a week to do when something like a Zapier or something else can do it in 15 minutes. You can create this idea. You can audit the tech tools that you're using and ensure that they're actually supporting your team instead of being a pain in the butt, instead of hindering their progress, instead of doing anything else other than supporting the team and the work that you're currently doing, right? And finally, you are then, when you have this all laid out like this versus SOPs or standard operating procedures, you're able to very easily see whether or not your business is an ecosystem working together or individual silos band-aid together with you at the top, right? You'll be able to see whether or not your team is actually using the tech effectively, whether the processes you put in place are actually supporting your goals, whether things need to be refined because things have changed, right? The processes you set up were set up 2 years ago and now you're no longer doing things the same way, right? Being able to have this two-dimensional version of your company, this blueprint of your company, truly allows you to see how the business needs to improve to continue to scale to that next level. Or if you're not trying to scale to that next level, continue to improve so that you and your team have more flexibility to spend time on other projects, right? Whatever that end goal is for you. So I just wanted to let you know that my team and I are what I like to call tech agnostic. We don't prescribe to any particular tech tool, which is why you did not hear me talk about any particular tech app. We truly believe in building tech stacks and operational processes for each individual company because you are all, even if though you all may be coaches, you all have very individualized ways of working and deserve to have that respected and amplified in your tech stacks, right? In your processes. So we're operational experts who have experienced streamlining and cleaning up processes for businesses making anywhere from their first 5 figures all the way to supporting 8-figure nonprofits. So we really, truly understand how to support you and your team during these larger operational changes and are here to support you while you're increasing your sense of autonomy, while also increasing your customer care, right? So some of our clients that we've worked with in the past and supported in the past to do exactly this, right? To find that time back, to find a way to create an ecosystem of tech so that they can continue to do what they're amazing without having to get frustrated at the tech that they need to continue to grow, without getting frustrated at the processes that they have in place that they need to continue to grow. All right, all. So, do you all have any questions for me? I know that was a lot of information. Okay. Natalie, I don't know if I'm seeing the chat right. Is there anything coming through for you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. My camera is taking a while to start. We've been experiencing challenges with the chat. So I do see people are just excited and thanking you for all the expertise that you bring in. So we don't have any questions.
Understood.
Yet. I do like one of the parts where you said at the very beginning about the tech, even if you have the most amazing tech, and if it's not set up or the team doesn't fully understand how to use that, it is really useless and maybe just taking too much of your time that it's actually better even doing without that. So when we were talking on my podcast, you did mention about the training. That training is so important for everyone on the team to know the limitations and build the capability of the platform. How do you ensure, or how do our coaching businesses ensure that that is indeed happening and the tool is being used to the fullest? Because we don't know what we don't know. Yes, every platform has all of those capabilities and their salespeople are telling us that all of that is possible until, we come
until you get in there. So one of the reasons that I say that these process mapping sessions should be collaborative is so that you are aware of where your educational gaps are, right? So that when you're talking to your team and they're outlining, hey, these are the things that are not working well in our systems, or these are the things that we don't know how to do, you can then address them, right? And it's easier to address them when you're talking to them regularly. Team meetings, when you're planning for your next launch, your next whatever project you're launching, is not the best time for that. So a situation like this where you're able to really sit down and address those individual questions are super important. Other than that, I usually these tech platforms have great universities to help you learn their their specifics, like their specific processes or how to build certain things, but that's usually pretty basic, right? It makes a lot of sense to either hire a company like mine or to like really invest in an educational program where your team can feel super empowered, or you have like a couple of like tech experts that can really dive deep into the tech and understand its capabilities, right? It's hard when you have non-tech people or people who don't feel 100% comfortable in tech trying to build out tech solutions. So you should always try to have a like techier person on your team so that they can address that and kind of build forward. While a lot of OBMs or DOOs can do the process mapping, the tech builds are in other things and not everybody's like cup of tea, for lack of a better thing.
Makes sense. Ariana, thank you so much for taking time. Where can people learn a little bit more about you and connect with you?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is just Ariana Rodriguez Co. That's the same thing as my website. I wanted to keep it pretty streamlined and straightforward. And if you ever have any questions, always feel free to DM me on Instagram or email me, Ariana at arianarodriguez.co. I'm happy to continue conversations and provide additional support or some kind of like advisory like support for any of you that way.
Awesome. And Ariana also was offering a 15% off of the business operational audit. And so if you are interested, reach out to her. She'll be happy to get you set up with that.
Yeah, my team loves doing these audits. So if you ever want to do them and you don't want to have your team do them, let me know.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And everyone, we'll see you in the next session.
Thank you all.